You're at dinner with someone who spends the entire meal talking about themselves, interrupts you constantly, sends their food back 3 times for minor issues, treats the server like they're invisible, and then gets genuinely offended when you suggest splitting the bill. You leave feeling exhausted and somehow guilty, even though you did nothing wrong. What you just experienced was the toxic combination of entitlement and narcissism, two psychological traits that often work together to create people who are absolutely draining to be around. But here's what most people don't understand. These traits don't develop randomly. There's a dark psychology behind how someone becomes so self-centered that they can't see other people as fully human. Today, we're going deep into the mechanisms that create entitled narcissists, why they behave the way they do, and most importantly, how to protect yourself from their psychological manipulation. Let's start by understanding what we mean by entitlement and narcissism, because these terms get thrown around loosely. Entitlement is the belief that you deserve special treatment, privileges, or rewards regardless of whether you've earned them. It's expecting the world to accommodate your needs while showing little regard for others' needs or the effort required from them. Narcissism is a personality pattern characterized by grandiosity, need for admiration, and lack of empathy. When you combine these two traits, you get someone who believes they deserve special treatment and lacks the empathy to care how their demands affect others. That's a toxic combination that creates enormous damage in relationships, workplaces, and families. Now here's where it gets psychologically interesting. Entitlement and narcissism don't develop in a vacuum. They're created by specific developmental experiences and reinforced by environmental factors. The most common origin is what psychologists refer to as overindulgent parenting. When children are given everything they want without having to work for it, when they're constantly told they're special without being taught that others are special too, when their negative behavior is excused rather than corrected, they develop the belief that the world revolves around them. They never learn the crucial lesson that other people have needs, feelings, and rights equal to their own. But here's the twist that most people miss. Overindulgence doesn't always look like spoiling a child with material things. Sometimes it's emotional overindulgence. Parents who can't tolerate seeing their child experience any discomfort, who rush in to solve every problem, who shield their child from all consequences. These parents are teaching their child that they're too special or fragile to handle normal life challenges. The child grows up believing they shouldn't have to deal with difficulty, that someone should always smooth the path for them. That's entitlement being programmed at a psychological level. There's also a darker origin for narcissistic entitlement that people don't talk about enough. Neglect and emotional abuse can create narcissistic traits as a defense mechanism. When a child's emotional needs are consistently ignored or invalidated, they sometimes develop a grandiose false self as protection against the pain of not being valued. They tell me that I'm too important to need anything from anyone. I'm above all this. People should recognize my superiority. This defensive narcissism is actually covering deep wounds and insecurity. Entitled behavior is a way of demanding from the world what they never got from their caregivers: recognition and validation. So we have two pathways to entitled narcissism. One is overindulgence, creating someone who genuinely believes they're special and deserving. The other is neglect, which allows someone to use grandiosity as a form of armor against feeling worthless. Both types can be equally difficult to deal with, but understanding the difference helps explain why narcissists often have such fragile egos beneath their arrogant exteriors. Challenge their superiority, and you're attacking the defense mechanism they built to survive emotional pain. That's why they react with such disproportionate rage when criticized. Let's talk about how entitled narcissists operate psychologically, because understanding their playbook helps you recognize and counter their tactics. First, they lack what psychologists refer to as object constancy. This means they don't maintain a stable mental representation of other people. When you're useful to them, you're wonderful. The moment you're not meeting their needs or you disagree with them, You're worthless and probably evil in their mind. There's no middle ground. This black and white thinking means relationships with narcissists are exhausting because you're constantly being idealized or devalued based entirely on whether you're serving their needs at that moment. Second, entitled narcissists use projection constantly. Projection is when you attribute your own unacceptable thoughts, feelings, or behaviors to someone else. The narcissist who's being selfish will accuse you of being greedy. The one who's lying will constantly accuse you of dishonesty. This serves multiple purposes. It deflects attention from their behavior. It puts you on the defensive. And on some unconscious level, it allows them to disown the parts of themselves they can't accept. When you're dealing with someone who constantly accuses you of exactly what they're doing, that's projection, and it's a classic narcissistic tactic. Third, they're masters of gaslighting. Gaslighting is psychological manipulation where someone tries to make you doubt your own perceptions, memories, and sanity. The narcissist will do something hurtful, you'll call them on it, and they'll tell you it never happened or you're remembering it wrong or you're too sensitive. Over time, this erodes your confidence in your own judgment. You start thinking, maybe I am overreacting, maybe I did misunderstand, perhaps I'm the problem. That's exactly what they want because once you doubt yourself, you're easier to control and manipulate. Fourth, entitled narcissists are experts at playing the victim. No matter what they do, no matter how badly they treat others, they'll somehow twist the narrative so they're the ones being wronged. They'll take your reasonable boundary and frame it as you being mean to them. They'll provoke you into reacting and then act shocked and hurt by your reaction. This victim playing serves to deflect accountability and manipulate others into feeling sorry for them rather than holding them responsible. It's incredibly effective because humans have empathy, and we want to help people who seem to be suffering. The entitlement aspect adds another layer to this psychological manipulation. Entitled people genuinely believe rules don't apply to them, that they deserve special treatment, that their needs supersede everyone else's. This isn't conscious villainy in most cases. They actually believe it. They've constructed a worldview where they're the main character and everyone else is a supporting role in their story. Your feelings, your needs, your boundaries, these are minor inconveniences that shouldn't interfere with what they want. When you try to assert your needs, they're genuinely confused and offended because in their mental universe, that's not how things work. Let's talk about how this plays out in relationships, because that's where entitled narcissism does the most damage. In romantic relationships, the pattern usually follows a predictable arc. First, there's love bombing. The narcissist showers you with attention, affection, and compliments. You feel seen and special and amazing. This isn't fake necessarily. They're genuinely excited by you at this stage because you're meeting their needs for admiration and validation. But the moment you fail to meet those needs perfectly, the devaluation begins. Suddenly, you can't do anything right. They're critical, dismissive, and cold. This creates anxiety in you because you're trying to get back to that initial wonderful period. That's the hook. The entitled narcissist then trains you through this cycle of idealization and devaluation to constantly seek their approval. You become hypervigilant to their moods. You suppress your own needs to avoid triggering their anger or withdrawal. You accept treatment you'd never tolerate from anyone else because you're trauma bonded. Trauma bonding is when you develop a powerful attachment to someone who's hurting you because of the intermittent reinforcement of their occasional kindness. It's the same psychological mechanism that keeps people in abusive relationships. The good moments feel so good because they provide such a welcome relief from the bad moments. In friendships, entitled narcissists position themselves as the center around which everything revolves. Your problems are minimized or ignored, but their issues require immediate attention and support. They expect you to drop everything when they need you, but they're mysteriously unavailable when you need them. They compete with you constantly, unable to be happy for your successes because it takes attention away from them. and they're susceptible to perceived slights while being completely insensitive to how their behavior affects you. The friendship is entirely one-sided, but they've convinced you that you're the lucky one to have access to them. In work environments, entitled narcissists take credit for others' work, blame others for their failures, demand special treatment while resenting anyone else getting recognition, and create toxic dynamics through their manipulation and lack of empathy. They're often skilled at managing up, meaning they're great at impressing bosses while treating peers and subordinates terribly. This allows them to advance while leaving a trail in their wake. Coworkers who have to deal with them regularly experience stress, anxiety, and decreased job satisfaction. Now let's address the question everyone wants answered. Can entitled narcissists change? The uncomfortable truth is that deep change is rare. For someone to change these patterns, they'd need to develop insight into their behavior, feel genuine empathy for how they've hurt others, and be willing to do difficult psychological work to address their underlying wounds and defense mechanisms. But here's the catch. The narcissistic defense structure exists specifically to avoid painful self-examination. Acknowledging they have a problem, that they've hurt people, that they're not as special as they believe, this is psychologically devastating to them. Most will never do it. Some will seek therapy, but only to learn better manipulation tactics or to get validation that everyone else is the problem. A small percentage of people with narcissistic traits can improve with intensive therapy, but only if they hit rock bottom hard enough to break through their defenses. This usually means losing everything important to them: relationships, career, reputation. Even then, change is slow and difficult. For most entitled narcissists, their behavior persists throughout their lives, leaving a trail of damaged relationships and burned bridges. This is sad, but it's also important to accept because it frees you from the fantasy that your love, patience, or perfect behavior will change them. It won't. They can only change themselves, and most choose not to. So how do you protect yourself from entitled narcissists? First, and most important, trust your gut. If someone makes you feel constantly anxious, guilty, or drained, if you're always walking on eggshells around them, if you find yourself making excuses for behavior you'd never tolerate from anyone else, those are red flags. Your nervous system is telling you something's wrong. Listen to it. Second, set firm boundaries and enforce them. Entitled narcissists will push boundaries constantly to see what they can get away with. You need to be absolutely clear about what's acceptable and follow through with consequences when they violate your boundaries. They won't like this, and they'll try to manipulate you into backing down. Stay firm. Third, refrain from explaining or justifying your boundaries. Entitled narcissists see explanation as negotiation. They'll twist your words and use them against you. You don't need to be complete on its own. You don't owe them a detailed explanation for why you won't tolerate being disrespected. Fourth, limit your emotional investment. Please don't share your vulnerabilities with them because they'll use that information to manipulate you later. Keep interactions superficial and transactional when you can't avoid them entirely. Fifth, and this is often the most challenging, consider whether you truly need this person in your life at all. Sometimes, the only way to protect yourself is distance or complete disconnection. Here's a crucial point that people struggle with. Protecting yourself from entitled narcissists doesn't make you unkind or lacking in compassion. Understanding that someone developed these traits as a result of their own wounds can help you not take their behavior personally. But understanding doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. You can have compassion for why someone is the way they are while still refusing to let them damage you. Your first responsibility is to your own well-being. You can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, especially when they're demanding more fuel while complaining the flames aren't high enough. Society enables entitled narcissism in ways we don't acknowledge enough. Social media rewards narcissistic behavior with likes and followers. Consumer culture tells us we deserve everything we want immediately. Self-help advice sometimes crosses from healthy self-care into toxic self-focus. We valorize confidence even when it's actually arrogance. We celebrate people who are ruthlessly ambitious without regard for who they hurt. All of this creates an environment where entitled narcissistic behavior is normalized and even encouraged. Recognizing these systemic factors helps explain why these traits appear to be more prevalent than ever. So here's my question for you. Have you dealt with an entitled narcissist in your life? And what was the moment you realized what you were dealing with? Drop a comment and share your experience. Sometimes just naming the pattern helps you see it clearly and make different choices. The dark psychology behind entitlement and narcissism reveals something uncomfortable about human nature. We're all vulnerable to developing these traits under certain conditions. We all have moments of self-centeredness. The difference lies in whether we possess the self-awareness to recognize it and the empathy to care about our impact on others. The entitled narcissist lacks both, and that combination creates a person who damages everyone close to them while rarely experiencing genuine connection themselves. Understanding the psychology doesn't excuse the behavior, but it does help you recognize it earlier, protect yourself more effectively, and let go of the fantasy that you can fix them. Some people aren't puzzles to solve. They're patterns to recognize and protect yourself from. And choosing your own well-being over someone else's dysfunction isn't selfish. It's survival. It's wisdom. It's the healthy boundary that says I deserve to be treated with basic respect. And if you can't provide that, you don't get access to me. That's not cruelty. That's self-preservation. And it's exactly what you need when facing the dark psychology of entitled narcissism. If this exploration of narcissistic psychology helped you understand patterns you've experienced, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. We're diving deep into the uncomfortable truths about human behavior, the psychological patterns that shape relationships, and the insights you need to protect your mental health. Thank you for engaging with difficult topics. Remember, understanding the darkness doesn't mean accepting it. It means acknowledging it. It means seeing clearly enough to choose the light.